For a few weeks now, there's been a coronavirus blame game between the US and China. For the latest, I'm joined by Robert Parson, our chief foreign editor. Rob, Washington is now accusing Chinese-linked hackers of attempting to steal information from US laboratories and research institutions working on responses to Covid-19. What specifically is it accusing the Chinese of?
Well, these sort of accusations of cyber theft are, of course, nothing new between the United States and China, with the United States in particular accusing the Chinese of trying to steal industrial and defense secrets. But this is rather new, the suggestion that the Chinese are trying to get access to the medical secrets of the United States, to find out, to hack into university institutions, into state-run labs, private labs, and so on and so forth, to try and find out what the United States is doing on testing, on vaccines, and preventative care against the COVID-19 virus. So, this is, I think, reflective of a fear in the United States that whoever gets the lead on the research on COVID-19, whoever first comes up with a vaccine against COVID-19 secures a major geopolitical advantage over the rest. The concern will be, of course, that China will get a lead against the United States. That, I think, is what it's really about. And, there have been accusations flying both ways as a consequence of this. Donald Trump suggesting this is nothing new, it's what you expect from the Chinese. The Chinese themselves accusing the United States of being immoral for coming out with this sort of story without any sort of evidence. But I think what this is really about is that concern I mentioned before, that one side or the other could, as a consequence of this pandemic, gain some sort of geopolitical advantage.
Rob, even before this crisis, relations had deteriorated between China and the US, and any hopes raised by the trade deal earlier this year seem to be evaporating fast, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, you might have thought that a pandemic would bring the worlds together, or perhaps even China and the United States. It certainly hasn't panned out that way at all. Mike Pompeo, the US Secretary of State, came out not very long ago with the accusation that this virus came from a state lab in the city of Wuhan, where the COVID-19 originated. He said he had massive evidence to that effect without actually producing any. The Chinese were indignant about that, state media calling Mike Pompeo insane and himself a sort of political virus. They said that they would call for an international investigation into why the United States had failed to cope better with the spread of the virus in the United States. So you can see the sort of ill feeling that has developed as a consequence between the two countries. And one factor I think that is important here, apart to, I think, from a genuine concern in the United States that America as a whole has become too dependent on China for pharmaceuticals, medicines, personal protective equipment, and so on. I think there is a big issue, I think, here for Donald Trump with an election coming up in November, presidential election in November, and the economy pretty much going down the tubes at the moment. He's looking for something to unite his electorate around him, and what better than to find an external enemy? And China fits the bill at the moment.
All right, thank you very much, Robert Parsons, our chief foreign editor. Now, Brazil is Latin America's worst affected country.